Okay guys, so many of you know I have this Generac iX1600 inverter generator. It was given to me by Generac for a replacement for another generator I had. It's a Honeywell something or other. It didn't work worth a crap, and so Generac gave me this one, which is Honeywell, same company apparently. I think one bought out the other or something along those lines. But they gave me this generator as a, I guess like a I'm sorry type of thing. Since the other one didn't work, they gave me this one as a replacement. I still have the other one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but this was a replacement given to me, I'd say 3-4 years ago. They sent it to my house, and so I've put probably, up until now, I've probably put about, I'd say 20 hours on this unit. One running a lamp, like a heater lamp overnight, and then another instance I had to run house power for like 5 hours, 4 hours, something along those lines. So it now does not produce electricity. When it runs, I'll try to spin it around here for you. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you have an overload light, a ready light, and a low oil level light. This overload light stays on constant, and once you start it up, it probably takes about, I don't know, 10 seconds, and the overload light instantly comes on and doesn't produce any electricity. I've tried doing the recharging the field by putting a drill on it and spinning the drill backwards. That hasn't done anything, so we're gonna have to do a little bit more investigation into this to figure out what on earth is going on in here. Now there's a lot of stuff inside this box, a lot going on. So if you don't feel comfortable with doing, like, having a lot of wires and stuff, this might not be the job for you. Or if you're not necessarily mechanically inclined, you might want to have somebody else do it. But this, a lot of stuff is in here, and it's very compact. So we're going to go ahead and take this apart and try to figure out what's wrong. Now I have like a workshop manual out of you guys' site. I have my shop utility computer with the diagnostic manual for this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to get my drill here. So essentially, I'm going to start off by taking this panel. You shouldn't have to take out the gas if you have gas. It's always good to take the gas out, but you don't have to. You're going to need just a Phillips. If you have a little drill, that might speed things up. Multimeter. It's always good to have. If you don't have one as a homeowner, you probably should get one. Very, very useful. And I like to have a little magnetic parts tray to put my stuff in. Now this case, the hardest part, once you take this case apart, odds of getting it back together correctly again are very slim. I'll be honest, I probably won't even get it back together correctly. But there's a few short stubby screws here by the handle. Take those out. There's another one right here. Okay, and there's one underneath the handle here. Let's turn it so you guys can hear it. Underneath the handle here, there's one. Take that out. There's one inside the fuel shutoff right here. You'll need to take that off. And you should be able to pull this fuel valve shutoff thing off. Just like that. And there's a little screw inside there, so try not to lose that. Put that on my little parts bin. Spinning around, you have 4 screws on your exhaust side. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't use the drill for this because it's too deep in there. They are Phillips head. Get it lined up there. Now, if you can easily access the wires in this inverter generator on yours, some of them have it in a little different location than mine. Now this procedure is only really going to work for the Generac models. I think maybe an 800 or 1200, the 1600, which is what I have, And then the 2000, it'll work for that too. It has to be this orange colored one, like you see here. Okay, this rear shield will come off. It has 4 screws. This one you can usually just keep it inside the retainer. Okay, and now if you didn't drain the gas, make sure your fuel cap is still on. And then you want to tip it over here a little bit, as such. And then in here and in here, you have screws, just like that. These are like, I'd say 4 inches long. Very long screws that go all the way through the case. Hold on, if I can get my drill to hook up to them there. I might have to use the good old-fashioned screwdriver here. Now I hate working on these inverter generators because they're so small and compact, and every single one I've worked on is a Chinese piece of junk. The little rubber, all the rubber fails in them real bad. The plastics don't hold up. The spark plugs are garbage. Next piece is this little like dust flap here. It's wrapped around the 2 feet. You just kind of work it off like that. You don't have to take it all the way off. Alright, flip this back up. Next, you're going to take the gas cap off momentarily. You want to put it back on if you still have gas in it. Spin it around here. Now up front here, you have this little clip. That little clip has to pop out. It's a little clip like that. That has to come off. Put that in the little parts guide. Okay, next you get into here. 4 screws on the front. Alright. And then your front panel comes off. Behind there is just looks like some rectifiers and your like household outlet and stuff like that. And then you got a plastic shield. And then inside there you have the inverter portion behind this heat sink here. There's an inverter setup, and that's what we're trying to get to. Now, of course, you could, let's see if I can get you guys in the light here. There's this big plug right here. It's got 6 prongs on it, and it's probably about 1 inch big. If you can get that off without removing all this stuff, you can do this test without doing all this, and you can skip ahead to where I actually get the multimeter out. But now that's that, all those portions are off. We can separate the case like this, and this is kind of the trickier part. You got those big long screws on the bottom you got to pull out, and this is going to be kind of the hard part to show you guys. But you guys are going to need a stubby screwdriver. You're going to need a tiny little stubby like that. Forgot to mention that. I always forget this part, and I'll show you guys. Inside this case, it's hard to show you. It's hard because I don't have good light to kind of point in there. Maybe you guys can see. But inside this case, you can get the recoil out. You just thread that square. This is kind of difficult one-handed. I'm trying to show you guys as I do it. You can thread this square through, and then the recoil handle like that. Now the tricky part is that fuel shutoff here. You can either disconnect the line here, which I don't like doing because I don't like taking the rubber off. Hopefully you guys can see it. I know it's probably dark. I don't like taking the rubber off of these like metal connections, but there's a screw. You'll need a stubby to do this, keep that in mind. There's a screw right here. You can twist that off like such. Maybe I can get it with my fingers now. Maybe not. Yeah. And I'll pull that, just one little screw, and I'll pull that shutoff valve off the case. So I'm going to go ahead and put my gas cap back on right here because I do have a little bit of gas in here. And then I'm going to pull the other side of this case off and reveal the power pack here. I'll go ahead and set you guys back up on my tripod. So it's not all shaky, but you can separate the case here. Alright. If you guys ever wondered what an inside of one of these inverters look like, that's pretty much what it looks like. You can take that case piece off, and here is the inverter pack. And this is the gas tank. I have gas in it, so I'm kind of trying to, I want to keep it out of the way here. Move you guys this way. As you can see, kind of has a hint of Honda. Let me set you guys up on the bench here now. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with here. Here's your recoil. See, it just looks like one of those little Honda engines right here. And so, what we're after is this plug right here. It's a 6-prong plug. It's got one little clip onto it. Just pop that little clip off. And these can be a hassle sometimes. I really need a flat head. Alright, there we go. Alright, and so you got the 6 prongs here. And so what you do in that overload light, you're going to end up checking first the resistance in the secondary stator. And I'm going to get my multimeter. I'll be right back, and I'll show you guys how to set that up. Alright, back with you guys here. So now I got my multimeter set up. You want to set it, I have it set to at least 200 ohms. And if you can get less than 200 ohms, that's better. If not, 200 ohms will work. And you're checking resistance here. And so you have this, what they call a C4 connector. It's this 6-spaded, well, the middle spade doesn't have one, but I have 5 spades on this. It should be this, it's universal between the 800, the iX800, iX600, and iX200. They're all going to have this same spade layout. And so what you're going to do is that little prong, the little latch that goes on it, that connects it to, you want to make sure that's on top so you know which ones you're plugging into. And so the order goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the spade on top. So your top left is going to be your 1 and your bottom left is going to be your 4. So what you're going to do with your multimeter set to ohms, you're going to want to tuck one into pin 4 like that, and another one into pin 1 like that. So you can see the ohm reading is 0.4 roughly. Now if you have an iX800, it should be 0.5. and if you have an iX1600, which this is, it should be a 0.7. Now if you have a iX2000, it should be a 0.3. And this, on mine, it's a little low, but I think that's okay. Just because it hasn't ran in a while, I'm gonna go with that. And they're a little. I did do this yesterday, and it was the correct number, but 0.4. Knowing that the more I go up, the higher it should, the lower it should be. I think that's good. So we're at least seeing some resistance going back through 1 and 4. And if you see that, if you do have resistance here, that means that your inverter unit's bad. You're pretty much deciding between what's bad in two things. Either their inverter unit's bad or your stator is bad. The stator of the coil is bad. And this determines that that coil stator is good. So now you know that this over here, this giant inverter unit with the heat sink on it and all the capacitors and windings, we now know that that's bad. So this would be needed, this needs replaced. If you get a similar reading, I'll show you guys up here on the actual chart what I'm looking at here. So mine is the iX1600. I got 0.4, I think it was, and I think 0.7 should be okay. If not, I think that's close enough in tolerance that should be okay. That means that this inverter device here is bad. Now, if this goes bad, I do not recommend replacing it because this part alone costs more than the actual generator itself. This part is, I think, is $661, and so that's not worth replacing. So knowing that pretty much makes this generator now worthless with 20 hours on it. This Generac generator is no longer going to be able to function after this little amount of time, and that's sad. But not surprising given the other problems I've had with these generators. So let's move on. Let's say that, that the overload light, this is the case, this is what you do if the overload light comes on, stays on, and doesn't go off. And so those are pretty much your only problems. Now, if the test reveals something different on here, you need to replace your stator. If you don't get any resistance, or you get some crazy number resistance, you definitely need to replace your stator, which is probably cheaper than the inverter. So that's a good thing for you. But this pretty much tells me that this inverter piece is bad because that's the only piece between the stator and the electrical outlets is this inverter. All right. So yeah, that pretty much diagnosed this pretty much tells us that our inverter is bad. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work and it's an expensive part. Let me get back to you once I get make sure we have no other options here in terms of diagnosing these problems. Alright guys, let's throw a different scenario out there. Let's say your generator is running fine, your overload light is not on, but your green ready light is on as well. And well, that's the only light that you have on, is the green ready light. Now we can test the main coil here, the main coil of the stator. And so to do that, we want to have the same settings as we did as the previous test with the 200 ohms. But instead of the pin 1 and pin 4, we're going to go with pin 3, which is that guy, and pin 5, which is this one. As you can see, I'm jumping right at roughly 2 ohms, which that's what it should be, is roughly 2 ohms. So that tells me the main stator's good. Now there's 3 tests for the main stator that you can do. Pin 1 and pin 3 and pin 5, which we just did. And we can do pin 3 and pin 6. We'll test that. So you can see 2 ohms as well, roughly 2 ohms. And then you can do pin 6 and pin 5. So you can see 2 ohms, pin 6 and pin 6 and 3, 2 ohms, and pin 3 and pin 5. You can see 2 ohms. So that tells us the main coil of the stator is good. So that now we do not have a stator problem. Say let's say that one of these puts up a different ohms, you need to replace your main stator. Simple as that. And there's really not much else to go wrong. I mean, you have your stator unit, your inverter unit, and your connections unit up here. Now, the easiest form, like the easiest thing to go wrong in these, and probably the best scenario for you, is just one of these connections is loose. See if I can get it around here. This is an average normal household plug right here, just like you'd find in your house. Just you want to make sure all those connections are good and sturdy on there. This is a DC rectifier over here. And here's your DC output with little trip breaker and your light gauge. I don't think any of this would cause it to not run. Mine has a flex power connection as well. But yeah, you can see those overload. So if you have a solid red overload with nothing else, but it does run, it just doesn't produce power, you want to do that pin 1 and pin 4 like I did earlier. That should have some resistance to it. And then let's say you have a solid green ready light and still no power. That's when you want to do the one I just checked, and check to make sure all of those 3 connections have resistance against them. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. We'll throw it back together here, and I'll sort of do a little concluding statement. Now, a little word of caution: putting these back together is a real pain. You can have a tendency. Well, I have a tendency to pinch a lot of these wires, so you got to pay really close attention to what you're snapping together and putting the case on. The case is usually really difficult to get on, just to snug everything in. But I'll let you guys watch that. Let me get started on that. Alright, so there really isn't an easy way to do this. The easiest way I found is you want to get this back piece without the cover and slip it over the unit. There's little holes on this side. You want to line those studs up with, you can thread it through the engine. It's kind of the motor mount of the engine, or the generator rather. And then from that you want to flip the whole unit over. So we'll tuck it in like that. Grab this recoil, sort of snug it up. Now you have a little hole right here, and that goes into the little rubber grommet, or at least you should try to. Grommet like that. You have similar rubber grommets on the bottom. See if I can lay it down. Yep, there we go. Okay, good. I'm not dripping gas. But you have, under your tripod here, you have little grommets like this that needs to slip into, and the actual generator portion here. Like I said, there's no easy way to get these. They gotta, you can see, move it over just a smidgen. Pull this, see if this rubber grommet comes out. Yeah, that'll make it a little easier. Get that lined up. We'll smash this guy back down in there. Like that. Now we have that side in. The other side is in already. Okay. Now that's in. We can fit. That's in. This next piece, you want to make sure you hook that connector back up. I mean, this is assuming that you actually get it fixed. Hook this connector back up like that. This unit's kind of done for, so we're just putting it back together so that it's all in one piece. And so you want to put this, the inverter unit, back in. Sometimes it's easier with the gas tank out. But there's two big capacitors on the back of that make it very difficult to wedge into there. I'm missing the rubber grommets on this one. So it should just, it'll fit in that back slot like that. And now you can slip your gas tank back down there. Like I said earlier, this is meant to be an extremely tight fit. Alright, that slides in, and you can see the grommet of the fuel tank will just pop right down in there like that. Okay. Everything's sort of arranged. And that is your kind of setup to get it ready to put the next piece on here. Set that off to the side, I think, to make it easier. Strap you guys back up here. This tripod is not liking it. Okay, and now this is the hard, tricky part where you can't really, you don't want to pinch lines or wires. So you got to remember, you have that fuel valve disconnected. You put on with the little short little screw. This one with the pointed threads. You want to put that valve back on. Actually, it might be easier to put this recoil out. Now it goes over the hose, not under. We can thread that back through, so we don't have to do it later. Just like that. Oh. You can see. You want to thread that back through, clip it in there. We'll put that screw in a second. But if you remember, we have that fuel valve we have to get to. And just like how you took it off, you'll want to put it on. You'll put this screw like that, kind of drag it over to where the hookup is, over here, and screw her in. And I'll get that hooked up and get right back to you guys. Okay, once you get that fuel valve back on, you're on the home stretch here. So you can screw in that recoil again. Just a little small screw. Now I'm sure there's an easier way to do this. Servicing these little generators is not fun. I'm sure there's an expert out there that can tell me, but this will get the job done. So once, just like on the previous side, you have little rubber grommets that sort of snap in everywhere. And you'll want to try to snap those in. And sometimes these wires and clips sort of get in the way. So just want to work it around. Now, the areas I had the most trouble with is this bottom corner down here by the panel in the inverter and the top. So pretty much the front side where all the controls are is where I find most difficult to get back together. And I'm telling you, I probably won't be able to snap it completely, as factory as it was. So we're going to go ahead and start putting in some screws here. I have a screw here I already had in. I never took it out and it stayed in. So we'll screw that guy in. We have one here. Another screw here. It's a clutch, it's not impacting it. Okay, we got that top side in. So this is the side, this is the part I always have a little bit of trouble with. There are like rubber grommets that kind of seat into it. So you're trying to look for those. Usually they'd be on this inverter portion. Alright. So next you want to get these long rods you had previously, stick them down in their little hole. And then you should be able to tighten them up. That'll help bring the case together. Just like that. And we'll try to push that out a little bit. I'm just going to loosen up because this didn't, actually it did kind of align. We'll leave it like that. And then we can put this little strap back on. This little air flap, it just wraps around the bottom of the foot like that. And it's got two little plugs that push into the bottom. And it acts as a little air dam. Okay, back up to the top. Top of the unit here. In goes this black piece, just like that. You can see this is the part I'm talking about where it's kind of hard to mesh it all together. These gaps are extremely hard to close. And so these two are held on by the same screws. You want to push them together like that and try to get them close. These screws will generally help you pull it together. Try to get this started. One on that side. And then getting another one on the other side might be a little difficult. We'll see. Nope, it's going to go. There's your 4 screws. So this one's going to be a little bit of a pain. Feels like it's in. And number 4. You guys can see there's still that little crease right there, and that is extremely difficult to getting these creases closed is extremely difficult. Like that. I don't know why they make it such hard to mesh. You'd think they'd just put all the wires in one tube to make it easy to close up. But we'll flip to this side here. Got a little screw. We're going to put this gas cap back on. Now there is kind of a certain way you want to put this on. Just kind of want to start it out up here. Because there's a little switch inside there that it acts as the off switch for the generator, so when you put it on the bottom it sometimes bends it. So, oh no, didn't do that right. Okay, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. There's a little momentary contact switch right here. that acts as the generator shutoff, and you don't want to end up smushing that. So let's try to dry fit it here. That's not it. Okay, so that works now. You can hear the little audible click. You just don't want to smush that little switch when you put it in, or else you won't be able to shut it off, or it won't start back up. So go ahead and put that back in, like that. Now that works. Okay, then you want to put the case cover back on. And last but not least, which this one's going to be very difficult, you have to put that little clip back in. This clip goes right under this gas tank. You can see there's a little notch. So I'm going to try to do it with my fingers. There we go. Punch it over a little bit. And you can see that clip back up there. Alright, you guys. That is pretty much the, well actually, almost forgot here. Gotta do the back panel here. But I mean, you guys are getting the drift. That's pretty much the reassembly of one of these. Now I don't know how easy or harder a Honda would be, but I tell you what, I think Generac needs to take these back and give me something different, because these I think this one's made somewhere in China. Yeah, SUZHOU is the manufacturer. So the engine manufacturer, and I'm assuming that the rest of it came from China too. So the inverter manufacturer probably from China as well. And it's amazing that these things fail so quick. It has probably less than 20 hours on it. And it just won't make electricity. Alright, you guys. Yep. That's pretty much it to diagnosing one of these. There's nothing really much else to it. They're a pain to work on. Don't buy one. Go with the Honda, and don't bother skimping out on something like this, especially if you're backing up your home or house, or you want something reliable, something that's going to start up every time and not break like this. I don't really have a good opinion of Generac right now, but yep, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe. Let me know if you found this video useful. Thanks.